Oh my god, it's another episode of Extreme TTRPG News with your host, King Waspinator.
Extreme TTRPG News! 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 Yeah! Extreme TTRPG News! Extreme TTRPG News! They're the world's most fearsome TTRPGs! These little masters are learning how to believe. When the wizards and the ghosts attack, these TTRPG boys have got up no slack. Extreme! News that is extreme! TTRPG power.
Well, it must be a slow news day in role-playing game land, because a lot of the topics making the circles again are kind of rather stale old subjects. And yet I've been seeing videos from not just RPG channels, but from, some of the quasi-entertainment political channels talking about some of these brand new hard-hitting issues like combat wheelchairs and racial essentialism. Are you role-playing the correct way? Are you sure? Well, let me tell you what you're doing wrong. Some of you who've bought my books may have noticed that I very rarely provide instructions. This is in part because there's a ton of different ways to approach these things, and since you've purchased the book, it's now up to you to manifest it however you want. I can't control that, and so I'm not going to try to impose controls upon that. Kind of as a courtesy. And there's another part of it that's just kind of a raw intelligence test. If you can't figure out how to do this, that's on you, buddy, not me. This is supposed to be a hobby for intelligent people. That seems to be increasingly in question, though. The whole argument about combat wheelchairs, I believe, essentially boils down to a massive misunderstanding of what the fuck a role-playing game even is. It's not an acting game. It's not a play-yourself game. No, it's implied in the whole role-playing part that you're taking on the role of a character that you're controlling and making decisions for as they navigate this virtual mental environment that the Dungeon Master, Game Master, Amazon Master, Referee, Lore Keeper, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is helping to create between the mind space shared by all the players. There is no definitive way to play because there's a lot of different role-playing games out there now. This argument might work in a vacuum where only D&D exists, but D&D is not the only role-playing game that exists. It's not acting. An actor might play a role, but you don't describe their job as role-playing. They have a script, for one thing. Even film, television, and theater that relies a lot on improvisation, for comedy especially, or allows the actors to, come up with their own lines on the spot if it seems right in the moment. There's still a large amount of guidance going on as to in what the blocking of the scene is and what the overarching plot and goal of the project is. And the actors are aware of this and where things are going and how they're supposed to try to get step by step to get to that goal. A role-playing game does not have that. The players are completely blind as to what the scenario is and what the resolution is and what might they encounter upon the road towards that solution. So it's not improv and it's not acting. Kind of like how movies use a lot of different types of art to create the product that is the movie. Role-playing games rely on a lot of different little things going on to create that end effect that you're looking for, but it is not singularly any one of those things in and of itself. So it's not acting, it's not improv, and much like there's that old line about game masters who railroad their players and have real specific plot-heavy adventures written out where they have a whole chain of scenes that have to be done in a certain order and there's almost no wiggle room for the players to come up with any plans of their own, and how you would tell them that, hey, maybe instead of running a role-playing game, you should write a novel. Well, in much the same way, if you're a player who's trying to express yourself and express your true self through your character, perhaps you should also write a book or a web series or do a blog or something, because this is not the venue for that. This is supposed to be trying to think your way through little mental puzzles. Sometimes those puzzles are stupid, brute things like combat. Sometimes they're literal puzzles. Sometimes they're harder to detect things going on in the background of the setting and the subtle ways that the players can influence and control the world around them through their actions if they start planning out and seeing how, the chain of consequences can evolve based on the things they do. Professionals who use role-playing games don't create characters and roll dice and go on little adventures. It's stuff like, FEMA having a role-playing game session where they're going to go through some disaster management scenarios. And since that's one of the few other things that exists out there that would call itself role-playing, then that should indicate what role-playing games are supposed to be. So, I guess that's the end of that.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Return to the 3rd century BC and the very dawn of civilization in Pax Luporum, Werewolves of the Republic, complete with campaign-setting sourcebooks for the island of Sicily and the island of Lesbos. Now available as a collected starter kit edition. Available now on Amazon.com and DriveThruRPG.
We now return to our program in progress.
Can a wheelchair exist in a fantasy medieval world? Sure. It's gonna suck. This using the magic system to get around the disability of being wheelchair bound is kind of ludicrous, considering that there's also magic that could just heal the person so they don't need the wheelchair in the first place. But that's, once again, ties back into this aspirational thing for a type of player who needs to express themselves, obviously, but should possibly find another venue than this. Especially since, unless you're have a popular live stream, it's not like you're really sharing it with the world. You're just sharing it with people who are quite likely already familiar with you and your bullshit.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
In the distant future of 1999, Amazon time barbarians fight to liberate the women of North America against vast armies of trolls and chads under the control of the Rogan Joe. This original tabletop role-playing game is thick with 2 C's. Available now on Amazon.com and DriveThruRPG.
We now return to our program in progress.
Orcs and racial essentialism. Yes, technically you could say old D&D is racial essentialist. Technically, with a big old asterisk next to that, because that is a disingenuous thing to say. They're not. If it was really racial essentialist, then it would have the humans divided into specific ethnic groups, and then each one of them would have different modifiers, plus and minus, to their attribute scores. But that's not how it is. They're using that kind of more old-timey way of using the word race, where they're really describing species, or at most subspecies, considering that humans, elves, and orcs are able to interbreed with each other, so obviously they're not entirely unrelated. But it is wrong to act like they're being KKK Nazi-style racial essentialists with this shit, when they're talking about things that are clearly non-human. And this new thing of trying to say that all humanoids are people. Yeah, sure. The fact that you're looking at generic template stats for something and it says a specific alignment, that's just supposed to denote what the average, randomly encountered version of that should be. That is not actually saying that each and every last one of these things has to be that specific alignment. After all, it describes humans in those books as being neutral, and yet you're not required to have to play your human character as neutral. But acting like they're racial essentialists, like they're fucking Leonardo DiCaprio's character from Django Unchained, is a false flag kind of argument. It's just assuming the worst out of people. And It's trying to like pat your, like, look at me, I'm the smart guy, I figured out this thing, you know, but it doesn't stop you from playing it if it's so fucking bad, now does it?
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
I've secretly replaced my wife's Folgers crystals with
Orc and Bone.
Let's watch and see what happens.
Well, good morning, Mrs. Queen Waspinator. I have your Folgers crystals.
Thank you. The hell is this?
Help your lady friends wake up the right way with Orc and Bone. It's not coffee.
We now return to our program in progress.
I'm shocked consent rules aren't being talked about, considering that, like, people are making videos about orcs and people are making videos about wheelchairs again. Why not bring up consent rules? Frankly, anyone who brings up wanting to include consent rules probably shouldn't be trusted. That's a sign that they're paranoid about things going on in a friendly role-playing game that, like, shouldn't be an issue. Aside from a few hypotheticals and a few rare outlier cases, the vast majority of role-playing game groups never have any of these problems and don't need to have to sign waivers that they're not going to sue anybody or whatever the fuck you need a consent form for in order to be able to play these things. Paranoid people are dangerous, and they're quite likely to engage in the very behavior they're paranoid of because they feel justified. You know, if you're paranoid that everyone's out there trying to rip you off, well, then you don't mind ripping other people off because, after all, it's only fair. They were going to rip you off first, right? You know, so anyone who's that hung up about making sure that nothing untoward is going to be going on in the role-playing game might very well be a sign that that's a person that you should probably keep an eye on.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Experience the thrills of classic pulp action adventure in Expedition to Ancient Egypt, featuring a variety of sourcebooks to enhance your campaign. Now available in the Ancient Egypt compilation. Get yours today on Amazon.com or DriveThruRPG and begin your time-traveling adventures in the ancient past.
We now return to our program in progress.
I still say that the woke thing and describing the problems with entertainment as woke isn't really working well, especially when high-profile people get into interviews and they're asked what woke is and they can't fucking define it. This is a marketing issue and an issue of safetyism. And those two phenomena combined together have created this environment where they're just trying to turn everything into kindergarten because they want to be able to sell to all four quadrants at the same time. Dungeons & Dragons, being owned by Hasbro, a company that makes plastic toys for children, only knows how to market to children, and child marketing has been warped ever since Columbine into this kind of Sesame Street presentation of what world is supposed to be like. And that's bled over into all of our adult entertainment because they want to keep selling adult entertainment to little kids. Thanks, dog. Yes. Spuds McWaspinator, everybody. He just had to be in the show. Well, anyway, I guess he's had enough of hearing me talk about this, so until next time,
stay extreme!
Now that's what I call extreme TTRPG news.
Extreme TTRPG news. It's the news for TTRPGs that's so fucking extreme. Get your extreme TTRPG news. Gary Gygax is alive. They're making it up to steal again. These colonious bastards won't take this hobby from me. Extreme TTRPG news. It's the news that's extreme and about TTRPG.
No, not that extreme.